You've probably heard stories of people who thought they were unbeatable, but there's always that one thing that brings them down to their knees. This one, it starts with a man named Jake Morrison, a man who'd spent over 35 years working with cattle, who knew more about bulls than most people knew about their own pets. But even Jake wasn't prepared for what he would face one cold morning in Texas. It was a quiet, cool October day when Jake first set foot on Blackstone Ranch in the Texas Panhandle. The wind was a soft whisper, rustling through the dry grass, and the sky above stretched out like an endless canvas of pale blue. You could hear the sound of cattle lowing in the distance, and for a second, you might have thought it was just another ordinary day on a ranch. But there was something in the air, something heavy. Jake pulled up to the gates of Blackstone Ranch, his truck's tires crunching against the gravel as he rolled to a stop. Marcus Blackstone, the ranch owner, was waiting for him. There was frustration in his eyes, but beneath it, you could see a deep sense of defeat. "You sure you want to see him?" Marcus asked, voice thick with exhaustion. Jake looked at him, unsure of what he was walking into, but confident in his own ability. "Let me meet the beast," he said, a calm resolve in his voice. But as he stepped out of the truck, he had no idea just how much his life was about to change. Marcus led him toward the pen, and that's when Jake saw him the bull. Diablo. Now, if you've never seen a bull like Diablo, you might not understand what I'm talking about. But let me paint the picture for you. Diablo wasn't just any bull. He was huge, standing a monstrous 6.5 feet tall at the shoulder, weighing in at over 2,400 pounds. His dark, coal-black hide shimmered under the sun like a storm cloud about to burst. His eyes, they burned with a fury that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside, kind of rage that made every hair on the back of Jake's neck stand on end. "That animal has injured 12 men in the last 2 years, Marcus told Jake, his voice shaky. 3 of them are still in physical therapy. My insurance company's threatening to drop me if I don't get rid of him." Jake watched as Diablo paced back and forth in the pen. Every movement was deliberate, each step a calculated measure. There was nothing random about this bull. It was like he knew exactly what he was doing. As Marcus told him more, Jake couldn't help but notice how controlled Diablo's anger was. It wasn't just aggression, it was intelligence. A deep, seething hatred for humans that made him a living nightmare. "Last month," Marcus continued, "he pretended to be calm when my foreman was checking his water trough. And then boom, he charged him through the fence, broke 3 ribs, punctured a lung." Jake was silent for a moment, taking it all in. He'd heard of difficult animals, but nothing like this. Yet, this was exactly what he had built his career on, saving the ones no one else could touch. "His bloodlines are impeccable," Marcus added, pulling out a folder thick with papers. "His sire was worth $500,000, and his dam was a champion show cow. He was born right here on the ranch, and for the first year of his life, he was normal, maybe a little spirited, but nothing out of the ordinary." Jake leaned in, intrigued. "When did the aggression start?" "At about 18 months, Marcus explained, his frustration mounting. "At first, it was just him bullying the other bulls, pushing them away from the feed and water. Then, he started charging the fence whenever anyone got too close. By the time he was 2, we couldn't put anyone in the same pasture with him." Jake studied the bull from across the pen. Diablo wasn't just angry, he was calculating. When the ranch hands walked past, Diablo positioned himself at strategic angles, waiting, watching. Every step seemed premeditated, every movement purposeful. "Have you had him checked by a vet?" Jake asked, his voice calm but filled with curiosity. Marcus nodded. 3 different vets. Physically, he's perfect. Whatever's wrong with him, it's not medical." Jake's mind raced. He'd dealt with troubled animals before, ones whose behavior stemmed from past trauma. Animals that had been abused, neglected, or damaged by a single catastrophic event. But this was different. Diablo wasn't just acting out, was broken. And broken things, Jake knew, could be fixed. "I'll take him," Jake said, his voice steady. "No charge. I'll transport him myself, no cost to you. You won't have to worry about the liability." Marcus stared at him as if he'd lost his mind. "Mr. Morrison, I've been trying to get rid of this bull for 6 months. No one will take him even for free. His aggression, it's enormous. What makes you think you can do something with him that 12 professional trainers couldn't?" Jake didn't flinch. His eyes never left Diablo, who was still pacing, watching them from across the pen. "Because," Jake said, his voice quiet but filled with conviction. "I don't see a monster. I see an animal in pain." For a long moment, man and bull locked eyes across the steel fence. Diablo's gaze flickered not with rage, but with something deeper. Pain, confusion, and maybe, just maybe, a desperate plea for understanding. Marcus's voice broke the silence. "Mr. Morrison, he's getting ready to charge." But Jake stayed still, his gaze never leaving Diablo's. Every muscle in the bull's body tensed, his head lowered, his hooves scraped the ground in warning. All of Jake's instincts screamed at him to Mavito get out of the way, but something inside told him to stay. And then, just as Diablo seemed ready to charge, something unexpected happened. A sound Jake had never heard before, a low, mournful call that seemed to echo across the wide-open Texas plains. It wasn't a snort or a bellow. It was something deeper, something filled with frustration, loneliness, and pain. Without warning, Diablo turned and walked to the far corner of his pen, his massive shoulders trembling with what could only be described as sobs. Jake's heart twisted as he watched the bull stand there, back turned, quietly broken. "Mr. Morrison," Marcus said urgently, "I'm begging you to reconsider. That bull has tried to kill everyone who's come close to him. If you take him, you're signing your own death warrant." Jake didn't respond. He didn't need to. He knew what he was about to do. He knew the risks. But he also knew that sometimes, the most aggressive animals were the ones who had been hurt the most. The next day, Jake returned with a trailer. It wasn't easy getting Diablo into that trailer. Took hours. A sedative dart, 6 ranch hands, and a whole lot of patience. Diablo fought every step of the way, but eventually, they managed to get him on the road. It was a long, 8-hour drive to Jake's ranch in Colorado, and Diablo didn't make it easy. Inside the trailer, the bull was restless, moving back and forth as though he were still trying to escape something. But Jake? He was calm, unwavering. He'd spent years building a reputation for doing the impossible, and this was no different. Once Diablo arrived at Jake's ranch, the real work began. Jake created a completely new environment for him, one that didn't feel threatening. Instead of steel and concrete, Jake built a natural environment, with soft earth flooring and multiple shelter options. The fence? Non-threatening. No sharp edges, no electric wires. Jake knew the first rule of rehabilitation: never force interaction. Everything had to be on Diablo's terms. For the first week, Jake did nothing but sit outside the pen. No eye contact, no sudden movements. Just a calm presence. And little by little, Diablo began to trust him. The breakthrough came on the 10th day. Jake was sitting outside, reading his book, when he heard something strange. Diablo wasn't snorting or bellowing. He was making soft, almost conversational noises, something completely unexpected. For the first time since arriving at Jake's ranch, Diablo seemed curious, not aggressive. "Hello, big guy," Jake said softly, not looking up from his book. "How are you feeling today?" And that was the moment. The moment Diablo took his first steps toward healing. Weeks passed, and Jake continued to work with Diablo, slowly breaking down the barriers of fear and mistrust. It wasn't easy, but with each passing day, Diablo became more than just an aggressive bull. He became something else: a partner, a healer. 6 months later, Marcus received a phone call from Jake. "Diablo's ready for visitors," Jake said confidently. "You won't recognize him." Marcus didn't believe it. How could he? But he agreed to come. And when he did, he couldn't believe his eyes. Diablo wasn't the raging bull who had once terrorized the ranch. He was calm, gentle, and that was just the beginning. Diablo's story spread, and soon, Jake's ranch became a sanctuary for other animals who had experienced trauma. Diablo became a therapeutic partner, working with children who had experienced their own pain. He'd become more than a bull, had become a symbol of redemption. But the real lesson? It's simple. No matter how broken something or someone may seem, with enough patience, understanding, and love, anything is possible. So what do you think? Can a bull like Diablo truly change? Can pain really turn into purpose? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe in second chances, in redemption, and in the healing power of love, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because stories like this, they're worth telling.